Hello and welcome. Human beings are not merely biological organisms responding mechanically to external stimuli. They are deeply subjective entities whose lives are shaped totally by inner psychological experience. The etymology of psychological comes from the Greek meaning soul, spirit, or mind, as everything is experienced through our minds, emotions, and feelings. It turns out that psychology really is everything. Far from existing as neutral observers of an objective world, out there, as Western materialism dictates, we navigate existence through consciousness. In here, a complex interplay of perception, emotion, selective memory, imagination, and interpretation. Subjectivity, embodied in consciousness itself, is not a peripheral aspect of the human experience, but its very foundation. Indeed, our understanding of what constitutes reality is always mediated by consciousness. It is inextricably interpreted through our subjective experiences. In a very strong sense, we create and maintain reality, and only we can change it. Contemporary fields such as philosophy, neuroscience, and quantum physics are challenging the traditional Western notion of an external, wholly objective reality existing independently of our consciousness. Reality, as we come to know it, is not merely an inert, detached object, but a relational co-creation crafted by the perceiving subject, humans. British psychiatrist and neuroscientist Iain McGilchrist has explored the distinct roles of the brain's two hemispheres, suggesting that they operate in ways governed by different modes of engagement with reality. The left hemisphere engages analytically and in a materialistic manner, which dominates much of current-day globalized society, while the right hemisphere embraces a more holistic and relational understanding. This framework resonates with the insights of Rupert Spira, a teacher of non-duality who emphasizes that our true nature is consciousness itself, not merely that which perceives or thinks, but the very essence from which all experience arises. 1. Consciousness and first-person experience. At the heart of subjectivity lies consciousness, the irreducible first-person experience of being. Philosopher Thomas Nagel poignantly framed this inquiry by asking, "What is it like to be a bat?" highlighting that there is something unique about the experience of being a conscious subject that cannot be captured by objective third-person accounts. We may employ neuroimaging technology to map neural pathways or simulate sensory input, but such techniques cannot quantify what it feels like to endure grief, to behold beauty, or to embrace awe, which are right brain activities. The uniqueness of individual consciousness ensures that even shared experiences are never identical. For example, a sunrise may evoke serenity in one person and melancholy in another. These responses do not merely reflect subjective inclinations imposed onto a pre-given reality. Rather, they actively contribute to shaping that reality as it is lived. McGilchrist underscores this relational aspect by noting that the right hemisphere of the brain enables a context-rich perception of the world, while Rupert Spira emphasizes that consciousness itself is the foundation of all experience. Consciousness is not merely a container for experience, it is the very medium through which the unfolding of life and what we take to be objective occurs. Consequently, consciousness emerges not as a passive receiver of objective inputs, but as an active co-creator of the world we experience. 2. There is no reality out there apart from consciousness. The traditional Western conception of a fixed external reality waiting to be objectively observed has increasingly come under scrutiny. This materialist perspective fails to accommodate the complex interplay of human experience and consciousness. Kant, Phenomenology and the Limits of Knowing. Philosopher Immanuel Kant contended that we can never access things in themselves, noumena. We can only perceive phenomena through the lenses inherent to our minds, structures of space, time, and causality. Phenomenologists like Edmund Husserl and Maurice Merleau-Ponty advanced this notion, asserting that perception is inherently intentional, directed from a subject towards an object, and is thus always shaped by the perceiving consciousness. The so-called objective world is never fully given. It is always translated and interpreted through the subjective faculties of human awareness. Quantum mechanics and the collapse of the objective world. Quantum physics further complicates this philosophical landscape, transforming it from mere speculation into empirical confirmation. The behavior of particles oscillating between wave and particle form depends on the presence of an observer, a measurement or an interaction of which humankind is but one. The collapse of the wave function signifies that observation is not merely a passive registration of existing facts. It is a dynamic creative act that determines the outcome. As physicist John Wheeler contended, we inhabit a participatory universe, one that remains incomplete without its observers. Quantum theory, then, reinforces the insights of both McGilchrist and Spira, suggesting that consciousness plays an indispensable role in actualizing, in bringing forth reality, rather than being a secondary feature within a purely material framework as we generally think. Third interpretation over objectivity. Human beings do not encounter a raw, unmediated world. Instead, they actively interpret, define, and co-create it through an interwoven tapestry of language, memory, belief, and cultural context. This implies that reality is never simply perceived. It is always perceived in relation to meanings that are personal and collective. Even modernist science, often regarded as the bastion of objectivity, ultimately depends on interpretive processes. Philosopher Thomas Kuhn illuminated this in his observations regarding scientific revolutions, asserting that they arise not merely from new data, but from shifts in the interpretive frameworks that comprehend that data within evolving paradigms. McGilchrist's insights further reinforce this notion by demonstrating that the analytical tendencies of the left hemisphere can obscure the more holistic understanding afforded by the right. What is deemed real or true is contingent not only on evidence, but also on the cultural and intellectual contexts in which that evidence is examined. For Spira, recognizing the importance of interpretation and subjective experience aligns with the understanding that what we perceive is intrinsically linked to consciousness, an unbroken, ongoing process of manifesting experience. 4. Emotional and cultural frameworks of reality. Perceptions, in our minds, are inseparable from our emotional states, all of which are totally subjective. Love can illuminate the mundane with beauty, while grief can cast the same scene in shadows. Our emotions deeply influence how the world appears to us, shaping what we attend to, what we fear, and what we deem meaningful. Likewise, cultural contexts provide the scaffolding that structures our interpretive frameworks. Considering a natural landscape, a Western materialist might regard it as a collection of inert atoms and physical processes, devoid of intrinsic value or meaning, left brain activity. Conversely, an indigenous perspective might view the same environment as a sacred ecology, teeming with spirit and life, right brain activity. While both experience a real world, those experiences are critically mediated through their distinct lenses of subjectivity. Thus, the notion of a universal, context-free view of reality is a myth. The world as experienced is always shaped by the subjectivity of the knower, sharply underscoring McGilchrist's assertion that how we perceive meaning is rooted in our relational engagement with the world. 5. The myth of pure objectivity and the power of narrative. The modern idol of a pure objectivity that claims to be devoid of bias or perspective, can be useful abstraction in the process of thought and imagination, but is ultimately a metaphysical impossibility. Every individual perceives the world from a specific vantage point, shaped by their body, culture, language, and personal history. Even our pursuit of objectivity is driven by subjective desires for truth, certainty, and control. Instead of viewing narrative as a distortion of reality, we can recognize it as the very medium through which reality is experienced. We are inherently storytelling creatures. Our memories, hopes, regrets, and values are embedded within narrative structures. Thus, we do not merely inhabit a world of facts. We dwell in a world of meaning, one that is always mediated through the art of storytelling. Spira resonates with this view, emphasizing the layers of experience that transform our understanding of ourselves and our relationship with reality. 6. Responding to the objectivist critique. It is essential to acknowledge that there are observable, regular patterns in the world, biological processes, gravitational forces, cyclical patterns of life and death. However, the human relationship to these regularities is never purely objective. Take, for example, the notion of death. It is not merely a biological phenomenon. It is an existential one. Death evokes dread, ritual, art, philosophy, and a longing for transcendence. While facts may exist, they only gain significance through subjective interpretation. This awareness does not render knowledge arbitrary. Rather, it positions subjectivity as the indispensable axis around which meaning and truth revolve. 7. Why objectivity still holds power. Despite these critiques, the modern world fiercely champions objectivity, which can be viewed as denial and an abrogation of our collective co-creational responsibilities, considering the existential challenges we are facing. This preference arises not only from a desire for predictability and control, but also reflects cultural and psychological needs. The materialist worldview offers comfort through detachment, allowing us to believe in a stable, unchanging world immune to the fluctuations of inner life. This reliance on objectivity has come at a profound cost. It has led to spiritual alienation, erosion of meaning, and psychological fragmentation, as seen in contemporary mental health crises, a reliance on predatory capitalism, and the ecological catastrophe that is an existential threat to all life on our home, planet Earth. The hunger for authenticity and the resurgence of interest in spirituality, purpose, and meaning signal the recognition that something essential has been lost. McGilchrist's attention to the imbalance created by an overemphasis on the left hemisphere resonates with the idea that our fixation on objectivity diminishes our ability to connect with the richer, fuller perceptions offered by the right hemisphere. Meanwhile, Spira emphasizes that the material perspective, while useful, should not eclipse the deeper understanding of consciousness as the ultimate reality. 8. Consequences of ignoring subjectivity. A society that dismisses or marginalizes the subjectivity of experience risks severing its connection to the very source of meaning. The emphasis on data, metrics, powerful AI, and quantifiable outcomes reduces human beings to mere objects, efficient and predictable, yet fundamentally alienated. Symptoms like depression, anxiety, and existential disorientation emerge not only as clinical issues, but resonate with a worldview that denies the primacy of the inner experience. To overlook subjectivity is to fundamentally misunderstand what it means to be human. This disconnect is vividly illustrated in McGilchrist's observations about the left and right hemispheres, while Spira's teachings on consciousness reveal that each human experience serves as a bridge between the self and the cosmos. Both are widely regarded as providing a profound critique of modernity and a call for a return to a more balanced, sacred, an integrated vision of human nature and the cosmos. Conclusion: toward a participatory vision of reality. We are not machines standing apart from a pre-existing world. We are conscious participants in the unfolding of reality. Objectivity occupies a useful role as a tool for fostering shared understanding when it is filtered through the essential, subjective lens of consciousness, which, to coin a phrase from Iain McGilchrist, when subjectivity, right brain activity, is the master, and objectivity, left brain activity, is the emissary. There is no access to reality that sidesteps individual experience. The world is not a static object out there, apart from how it is lived, felt, and interpreted. By embracing the primacy of subjectivity, along with the insights provided by McGilchrist regarding the brain's dual modalities and Rupert Spira's perspectives on the nature of consciousness, we do not reject science or truth. Rather, we deepen our engagement with both. This perspective invites us into a fuller, richer understanding of what it means to be human. Beings who feel, imagine, long, interpret, and co-create the world they inhabit. In this framework, reality is not merely discovered, it is lived into being through consciousness itself. As we honour both the subjective and objective realms, we cultivate a more enriching and integrated understanding of existence, thereby setting the stage for a greater awareness of our interconnectedness in a participatory cosmos.